Kim says, how do you manage your time to include implementation times for the new things you've been shown in your vision? Honestly, I just hand it over to God. I don't even worry about it. Anytime I try and manage time, like the idea of managing time, firstly, really let's think about this from a quantum perspective, from a supernatural perspective. It implies that it's rigid. It implies that it's finite. It implies that it's limited. It implies that you have this rigid thing that is how it is, and you have to now manage it and make it orderly, like naughty time. Let me manage you. Let me order you. Let me make you, let me mold the time, or more so people are actually thinking they need to mold themselves in order to conform to the rigidity of the naughty, restricted, rigid, inflexible time that they have in limited amounts. And the whole mindset is just ghastly if you think about it. So for me, years ago, by the way, before I even had God at the center of my life, years ago, I decided I'm not even going to worry about time anymore. This was after I had figured out money. I've never figured out anything, but I figured some things out about money, and I figured out that when I just lean in belief that money is there and it always shows up, and that I'm in a great relationship with money, and that all I have to do is what I'm led to do and just choose to trust and believe that the money will show up, that it then did. Now, there's many other parts to that, which I'm teaching you all about anyway. So, but loosely, that was it. And I realized that the more I trained my beliefs to expect things with money, the more it was working, even though there were times when it didn't seem to be, but it definitely was over time, right? And so then at some point I just had this revelation where I was like, what if I just started to believe that time was infinitely available as well? This was before I even started studying quantum physics at university, or before I even started learning about the quantum stuff and supernatural stuff in any sort of a way, although I guess I watched Where the Bleep Did We Know 20 years ago plus when it came out. So I was always into that stuff. I watched lots of, and I read whatever. I mean, I was always into the quantum. I grew up supernaturally educated, but not in that way, or at least it wasn't out of the recesses. But I just decided time's no longer going to be a problem for me. I literally just decided this in my own head. I wasn't even really basing it on anything. I was basing it loosely on that I had decided at some point money is no longer a problem for me, and I'm going to act accordingly. Great life decision, by the way. Sure, there's lots of learning to follow it, but it's a great life decision. So honestly, that's what I did with time, because I just wasn't available. As I said earlier, I wasn't available for not having the things I wanted done. By this time I had a baby underfoot when I decided this time thing, and I was like, no way, like, get out of here, get behind me, anyone that will say stupid things to me like you can't have the body you had before you had a baby, you can't do all the things you did, you can't whatever, you can't. And I would just think, like I said before, I would think, maybe you can't, but I can do what I want, and it's not going to be at the cost of my parenting or my baby or my sleep or anything. I'm just going to decide that it's all going to work. Now, clearly that would not work in a rigid mindset of time. So how I manage time to this day is I don't worry about it. Anytime I do concern myself with time or start thinking that it's a real thing, that it's limited or rigid, or even like the sleep thing, Kim, I think it was you where I answered that in Warrior Leader. But the sleep thing, like I get up super early because it's just important to me for my various practices that I like to do in the morning, and that's just what I'm led to do. I usually get up at 4 or 4:30, but I'll go to bed sometimes as early as 8:30. Often more like 10, even 10:30 or 11. And that's night in, night out. 11, not so much lately. But there's been plenty of times where I had way limited sleep I am not interested in or available for, and I just choose not to believe in the idea that I'm going to be tired because I didn't have enough sleep. If I believe in that idea, it occurs. If I don't, what happens is I go supernatural. A saying I've had for years is, at this point, the only option is to go supernatural. So that's how I look at it. If I know my sleep is limited, I don't like try and make my sleep limited and try and just like push my body to the edge or something. It's more that if that's how it's playing out, because that's where I needed to be and what I needed to do, then I'm just going to go, okay, well, I'm just going to have supernatural energy, focus and flow. I'm not going to be walking around tired all day. If I need a little quick 10-minute nap, I'll have one, but whatever. A lot of these things, I just don't worry about it. And it honestly has worked for me for years. It's not a made up concept. There's also science behind all of this stuff for anyone that actually wants that side of things. There's quantum science behind it. There's quantum physics behind it. There's various different things from a proof perspective, if you need that, that's behind it. But I think you can just, and it's also scriptural, like it's godly principles. And I think everyone knows that that's what I live by. But you would know also, or many people would know, that a lot of biblical and godly principles really match principles that are just taught and understand to do with expansion and receiving and supernatural stuff. So these are principles I just figured out in different ways in my life over the years and that have worked for me, and I don't worry about time I'll tell you how I do it. I basically plant in the seed that the thing is going to occur. Like, let's say writing out a new offer, and I just resist and turn away from any idea that comes into my head that says I don't have time, or that I also have to do all these other things. And that, like right now it's 10:44, I'm meeting a friend at 1:30, so that's 3 hours. Well, that will go by in a heartbeat. I mean, really, I want to just like change the whole world in the next 3 hours, and there's many things that would take 30 hours to complete today if I did them all, I guess, that I would like to do theoretically. I just don't even worry about it. I honestly like would go in from here to the warehouse or to wherever I'm at, whether I've got 3 hours, whether I've got 30 minutes, whether I've got 3 minutes, whether I've got a day. The way I would do it is I would connect in, like, okay, I'll stop, especially if I am feeling frazzled or overwhelmed, or I'm feeling concerned, or like I'm getting into an idea that I'm limited, you know. Then I would stop. If I was feeling that way, I would probably even make myself spend like the first 30 to 60 minutes of that time just on the floor, like praying, dropping in, meditating. That's how I will like discipline myself. If I feel like I'm limited, then I'll spend more time going, well, too bad you don't even get to start then until you got past that. And honestly, I've done that for years, that exact discipline I just described to you, with plenty of journaling, meditating, visioning, and prayer as well. And now it's just predominantly prayer, but there was always prayer there over the years, and a lot of journaling. And that's a discipline, and it's always worked. And so then when I do take action, I will literally stand there, especially if I'm feeling a bit disorientated or frazzled or like, oh my gosh, and I'll stand there and I'll just go, okay, what is the actual next thing? And then I'll do that, and it'll take as long as it takes, and then I'll do the next thing. I just trust it's all working together.